Hey, fire starters, welcome. Let's fuel and fan. Today we get to talk to Natty Frasca. Natty is a pleasure leadership coach for go-getter women. She's a writer, a speaker, facilitator, and host of the Feminine Rebellion podcast. Hey, girl, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Now, Natty, first of all, I have to tell you, I love your look. You're edgy, you're bold. I love the haircut. I love all your going through your website. I love the vibe. I'm like, girl, she's sexy. She's got it going on. And so I'm curious. So how much what we see in your marketing and even who you are right now with this awesome haircut and stuff versus who you are at home? Because I always think somewhere in the middle is where authenticity really lies. Yeah. And that's who really I'm wanting to talk to today. So tell me where do you fall?
Yeah. To be honest, Monica, I'm kind of like an all out kind of woman. So I'm not a hider of much. So what you see online, maybe what's not on my website is like my addiction to nature. So, as I'm like glossy and fashiony online, I spend a lot of time in like overalls in the woods.
Oh, well, see, I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah. So, I grew up in the mountains of New Hampshire. I'm an avid hiker. I have 2 dogs. So that's where I get a lot or harness a lot of my creativity. But there's many sides to me. Like there are many sides to all of us. So I'm also really into fashion, and like vintage stuff and scouring, vintage stores and, online I am pretty glossy. But if you go on Instagram, there's I share some gritty moments.
Yeah, well, I think it's just probably speaks to your character and your business, and you are bold and you're saying some really not triggering, but really important messages, and you're using language to perk up people's ears and women's ears. Like, wait a minute, what is she saying? And she's right on point. So this is why I love your marketing. But before we start and dive into all things business-wise, I really want to understand, what do you believe in and what do you stand for? And I always ask this question because I think it really is much more telling than what do you do?
Yeah, sure. What do I believe in? I believe at the core of my being that every woman is a leader and has the capacity to lead in their lives, in their businesses, in their relationships. And I believe we have been led down the wrong path, and a path of kind of overgiving, people pleasing, stunting, burying our own desires, this having to show up a certain way to life, being accommodating, modest, the right amount of sexy, all of it has kind of led women down this path where it's like we're wearing 45 layers. We've been conditioned to like stay small in order to be loved, appreciated. So I believe that, we have a long way to go, but my work is helping women kind of peel back those layers and stop playing small. I believe in a woman's sexuality as fuel for creativity and creating a life that feels really, really good from the inside out. I believe in the power of connection, human to human connection. I think that is where, we are going to heal the planet is really, Brene Brown, right? Getting vulnerable and learning how to connect with humans, especially when we disagree.
Right.
So I would say those are some of like my top beliefs.
Yeah, those are important and really core to who you are. and
For
and
sure.
then you've taken that and translated into running a business. And one of the
Yes.
things that you write is, I guide women like you out of overwhelm, people pleasing, and numbness, and back home to the most powerful, sacred version of yourself.
Mm.
So let's really dive into this. So I feel like when I read that, I feel like maybe there's a backstory there. Like you didn't just land on that. I mean, right, Natty? Like we don't
Yeah.
just land in those comments or statements. That those are big, bold statements, but they
Yeah.
come from a story. So you want to tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, a little bit of my origin story. It's like a moment. It was like a moment, Monica, really.
Mm,
That my entire life I feel like led me to. Um, I was, running a nonprofit
okay.
with 3 little kids, husband that worked a big job, wasn't home very much. Um, I was overwhelmed on a daily basis. I was on a cocktail of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication. Um, I just felt numb to life. And I remember laying in bed and thinking, like, what is this all for? Like, is this what my life's supposed to look like? And my husband and I were in couples therapy at the time, and I decided I wanted a divorce. And we had been in couples therapy for like 6 or 7 years. And I was like, we're getting nowhere. I'm done. So in this couples therapy session, I kind of dropped this bomb. And my therapist said, well, what do you really want, Natty? And I said, I want a condo in the center of town. I want someone to mow my lawn. I want a lover, probably.
Mhm.
And he was like, actually, no, let me rephrase that. How do you want to feel? And I paused. I had no idea. I was confused by his question. I was silent for a little bit. And then I had this vision of what I wanted my life to look like and how that would feel. And the vision was me in my kitchen stirring a pot of my family's ragu. I'm from an Italian family.
Yes.
Jerry Garcia on the radio, my little baby kids, all 3 of them like dancing around the kitchen, and my husband kind of coming up behind me, resting his beard on my neck, squeezing me, kissing me, pouring me a glass of red wine. And I was like, it was that I really, really craved for my life. And I didn't say that right off the bat. I just kind of choked up and started to cry. And it was the first time I really thought about what I desired versus the life that I was creating through like hustling, doing so much, having my kids in 45 different activities.
Mm.
And when I finally did share that in my therapy session, my husband leaned in and said, I want to do this. I want to give that to you. And I was like, what? And he's like, you don't let me. You're so tough.
Oh.
You're so tough. And yeah, it was like, ouch. And, I was raised the youngest of 3 kids in an Italian American household, the only girl. And I learned to like power through, muscle through, hustle through everything. I learned to be the best at everything. I really was very, very kind of like regimented and intense and
Mhm.
perfectionistic. Um, and in that moment, it just kind of became clear. I became aware that all of that training to be the best, all of that training to like have like a Martha Stewart house where my kids were eating organic food and taking violin lessons, and
Yeah.
like it wasn't getting me anywhere. So that was the beginning of kind of my unraveling or my reclamation, really. And from there, I ended up leaving my nonprofit job, becoming a yoga and meditation teacher. And this was 7 years ago.
Wow, completely 360.
I just needed a break. I
Mhm.
needed to figure out what it was I wanted. And now I'm here 7 years later. I'm coaching women out of those dark places, out of the numbness, and back home to what it is they really desire for their lives.
So, Natty, so much to unpack there because, first of all, When you heard your husband say to you, those are I want to be that for you, but you need to let me in. Why do you feel like women, we are so buttoned up and so focused on these optics of having it all together and reaching out and saying, you know what, I need help, or I can't do this, or this no longer is serving me. Why do you feel women struggle so much with that?
Well, we've been trained to have it buttoned up, right? We have been led down the path of being, first of all, not connecting with other women about these things, right? Like you may have like bitch sessions, pardon my language,
Right.
but like this is where I connected with women. It was more about complaining than it was changing.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, we've been trained to be who we are not, really. Like you can't show up super sexy. You have to be the mom who does all the PTA stuff.
Mhm.
You have got to, in order to be thought of as smart, you have to work a big full-time job. Um, there's not a lot of wiggle room in just kind of creating the lives that we want to create. Um, and there's this sense that we have to do it on our own, right?
Yeah.
That a strong woman is independent. A strong woman doesn't have any needs. And so that's how I was raised. So asking my husband to support me and love me and hug me and be soft with me
Mm.
was deeply uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I think when I hear you speaking, I think so much about my peers, and that it resonates so much. What you actually wrote this. Um, it looked like I had it all: a marriage, a beautiful home, food on the table, healthy kids, a great job, a nonprofit, and yet on the inside, I felt flat, empty. I would lay in bed at night, usually with a glass of Chardonnay, to numb my racing mind and wonder, is this it? But this is what I love the most. I craved more, and along that craving came the immense amount of guilt. Of
Yes.
my man kept telling me, "Be happy with what you have. You're so lucky. Be grateful." And Natty, when I read your words, I said, "Yes, this is exactly what I'm feeling." And I'm when I'm connecting with women too, is that sense of overall like, well, no, this is a perfect life. I have no room to complain. And hush it up,
Mm,
zip it up, put on your lipstick, and keep going. But
mm,
and then to your point, it's like it's just optics. And we're
yes.
all sort of going through the motions, but yet not fully living. And then the
Yes.
more I talk about women like this, because I used to be that person myself, like you, women are raising their hands going, oh my God, yeah, let's talk about this because this is how I feel too. But we sort of fucked it up as women. We really thought we had to be a certain way when we're all really salivating for the other. Like, let's just have real conversations, you
Yes.
know? And
Yes.
it's now that don't you find that you flip the narrative and now you're actually showing up as who you are with all the messiness that brought you here? More women are like nodding their heads going,
Nodding.
"Yes, I
Yes,
hear you. I
please.
am you."
Me
Yeah.
too.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I hear every single day, Monica. I
Yeah.
mean, this is the truth. Women come and say, I want more, I just don't know how to get it. And
Mhm.
really it involves some really hard conversations sometimes with the people that we love, first with ourselves to kind of
Yeah.
recognize that it's safe to want more.
I love that. It's safe to want more, but how do we give okay, so I will say, let me backtrack. I think a
Yeah.
lot of women raise their hands and say, "Yes, I feel you," but I think you have to get to a certain point because also a lot of women are comfortably fine wearing that mask every day.
Yeah.
And even though they're not happy, how do we unleash that? Like give them permission to say that it is safe to speak up and it's not selfish per se to want more.
Well, I don't think you can convince people, first of
Mhm.
all. I think we show people.
Yeah.
I think that we become the fire starters, right? And so what has happened to me is people are like, wait, I want that. Like, and it just becomes this sense of awareness that, like, wait, it's like that scene from When Harry Met Sally. I want what
Yeah.
she's having, right? And by being the women who are the fire starters, the igniters,
Mhm.
we are giving permission to other women to do the same. And not everyone's going to jump on board. right? Not everyone's going to jump on my train. There are a lot of women who are still stuck who are like, how dare you?
Right.
Right? Like, how dare you jump off, this path? I'm still on it.
Mm-hmm. Like we
But
broke some rules or of engagement that somehow
yes,
somewhere along the lines we signed this contract with I'm not sure who.
yeah.
Because to your point, isn't your husband more in love with you now than ever because you are
Oh
who
my
you
God.
truly are?
Yes. Well, I'm more probably of who I was when I was like 24 when he met me, a little bit of a wild child, before we kind of buckled down, had a mortgage and 3 kids.
Yeah.
And I all of a sudden was like, wait a minute, the rules changed. And now I have to get really serious about my life. But there's a playfulness to life. Like,
Right.
Mary Oliver says, we have this one and wild life, right? And it is true. And when that really sinks in, like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is all we got. Like, I want to wake up happy in the morning. I want to wake up and dance in my kitchen. I want to make love to my husband of 22 years and feel deeply connected to him. I don't want to be sleeping in separate bedrooms, like,
Exactly.
and unfortunately that's the reality for many women is that, they get to what I have found is post 40 is where most of the women I work with, right? We've checked all the boxes of success, right? I had a big job. I had the white picket fence, 3 healthy kids. And then we kind of sit and say, wait a minute, is this it?
Mm.
Like there's like an awakening.
It is an awakening. It's the however you get there. I just encourage women to have that question alone, Natty. Like, how do you want to feel? How do you feel? Like that is
Yes.
so important.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
don't. And to your point, I love what you said when he first asked you. You were like, "Huh?" Because you're
Yeah.
not even.
Yes.
What are you saying? You like? I have permission to actually want to feel a certain way.
Exactly.
You
It's
know?
so funny, Monica. I wrote an article about this story a few months ago and published it to Elephant Journal. And I get comments and emails from women like every darn day about it, saying like, "Oh my God, yes, best question ever. How do I want to feel?"
Deal.
And that's it. And like everything else, the job you have, I mean,
Mhm.
the way you interact with people, it just all kind of falls in line. And it's not saying that there aren't messy, chaotic moments. I mean,
Right.
we all have dark moments. I'm not spiritually bypassing, that we are going to like not walk through the swamp sometimes. But when you have that North Star for how you want your life to look and feel like,
Mhm.
you use it as a compass.
Yeah, I do listen to Abraham Hicks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, she's such a huge advocate for this sort of, you got to fight for that feeling, that feeling of goodness and like flow and ease. It's really
Yes.
supposed to be easy. And
Yes.
I know when I talk to people about this, they look at me like I'm crazy. But even to your point, even in the turmoil of life, the messiness of life, the day to day, the loving should be easy. The
Yes.
being just alive and knowing what you want
Yeah.
is
And yes. And if it's not easy, those are amazing moments for growth and
mhm.
reflection. Like, okay, things are chaotic right now. What's happening? Like, I had a
Yeah.
moment last week where all 3 of my kids were home and I was feeling like really overwhelmed with working kids. And I was like, okay, I haven't set proper boundaries.
Mhm.
Right? My learning here was that I should have blocked off my work calendar for 3 days to completely engage with my family because that's what I
Mhm.
really wanted, but I didn't set the boundary. And so what will I do going forward? Right? And part of that process was having like really vulnerable conversations with my kids and saying, "Wow, like I've built this business. It fills me up and I made a mistake.
Mhm.
I should have cleared off the calendar and I'm sorry." And yeah, those are moments for growth.
They are, and it's always so important, I think, when the parents apologizes. I don't think we do that
Mm,
enough because we
yeah.
think we're the parents. But to your point, we fuck up too.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't always have our best moments, and our kids need to hear that. So I love that you did that for them. And I'm sure they heard you and moved on because that's what they forgive. And like we
Yeah.
do, we forgive. Yeah,
Yes.
it's important. It's hard, isn't it, to sort of balance trying to fulfill your cup and what's important to you and also give to these little lives who are, as they get older. I think you and I have kids about the same age. Mine are 18 and 20. You just start to appreciate that these moments under this roof are becoming less and less.
Yes.
And as much as I was not your ideal, like mama bear in the sense where I didn't do the get on the floor and build blocks and
Yeah.
it wasn't the most patient mom of toddlers, so forth. But I do appreciate them as human beings, like just humans, and just having them around lights me up.
Yes. Me
Yeah.
too. Me too. I'm soaking in every moment with my kids these days.
Yeah, it's really
Feels
great.
so
Now,
good.
how has it been? So, to sort of give me a little timeline here. You were at the therapist saying to your husband, "I want a divorce." How many years ago was this? You froze.
Oh, you froze.
Yeah, you froze. Are you there?
Yeah, you froze for a second. Sorry.
Okay, let me redo that because we can edit this out.
Yeah.
Okay, so when exactly was the year that you said to your husband, "I want a divorce"?
Yeah, I think it was 2015, 2006. I think it was October 2015.
Okay, and here you are now, still in love, like married and
Yeah,
amazing, and
way more in love than we were before. Yeah.
yes, and you sort of worked it through. And by the way, are those moments of those feelings, are you experiencing them more often now because you also are saying what you need and communicating that to him?
Yes. Yes. I mean, the good, juicy feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he's my buddy. He's my partner in crime. I call him, we have a really good time together. We go see music, we take road trips, we make yummy
Fun.
meals together. Yeah, we hike together. It's there's deep connection there, which is what I always wanted.
Well, I'm so happy that you got it. Now you've built a business around this.
I
Yeah.
have.
So you went through like the swamp, like you said, you made it through the other side. You learned a lot of lessons. You took all these lessons and your passion for, I guess, transformation and like sort of a butterfly, you metamorphed into this beautiful person. And you're saying, okay, hey, by the way, it's not a secret sauce that I have to keep. Let me share it with the world.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
essence, is what.
Yeah. And I find most women just need a soft place to land and to be really vulnerable and share the things that are on their heart that don't feel safe to share other places. And then, have some tools to help them, once we have this vision for what they want, give them the tools and the practices to create that for themselves. It's totally possible. And yeah, I love my work.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. Okay. So part of your belief system through work, I found these, like, I don't know if they're affirmations, but it's really what your compass and how you drive your business. So I just want to have a little conversation about these.
Yeah, sure.
So one of the first things you say is, I believe we must first understand the world in which we are planted, the trauma it has imprinted within our bodies before we can rise. Do you want to give me a little bit of where you're going from that?
Yes. So most women that I meet with, the first couple things they say to me are, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Like, I have all this. Why aren't I happy? And so I think it's really important to understand that, number one, there is nothing wrong with you. Like, you've simply been kind of trained to go down a path which has disconnected you from your desires. So if you think about, between the ages of 0 and 7, maybe you used to play in the woods, play dress up, like there was a freedom and a wildness to you. And mostly, from 7 on, that's trained out of us. So we become, more buttoned up, more quote unquote professional in order to make it in our careers, make it throughout our education. And so there's nothing wrong with you. You've just been kind of led down this other path and trained to be who you are not. So that's the first part of that. That's what I really mean, is that it kind of takes the onus off of women and saying that, like, no, actually, you're absolutely perfect. And together we can kind of learn how to shed these layers and get back to the things you really, really want for your life. And when you get back to those, you begin to feel this aliveness. When I say come back to your body, it's about how you want to feel. It goes back to that feeling, right? What are the things that I'm doing that make me feel alive? And how can I do more of those things?
Okay, so I also agree with you. I mean, to me, when I hear that, it's like you really have to go back to your yesterdays to understand who you are today, right? We all, to your point, like have this software system that needs to upgrade it, but we don't know what the upgrade is until we actually go back and figure that out. And I always say, like, if we can go back just long enough to decide, okay, I can take these certain things for the resilience of what I learned from it and my strength to continue. But a lot of it just has to be left in the past. And
For sure.
do you find like a lot of women, when you're working with them, they struggle to just leave things in the past?
Well, yes. And the reason is, and this goes back to how these traumas are imprinted in your body. So it goes back to our lived experiences, right? So just say, you worked at a job and, you were doing really well, but there was a guy at the job, and a boss maybe who shut you down, right? So in those moments of continual shutdown, you start to kind of quiet your voice and learn, okay, it's not safe to speak up in this meeting. It's not safe to kind of show up too smart. And so we begin to steer our lives in this direction of kind of staying more quiet or staying more, people pleasing more. So these traumas, you can call them like little t traumas, they are imprinted in our bodies. I don't know. There's a great book called Your Body Keeps the Score, which kind of illuminates this, right?
Oh, 100%.
So so these traumas are imprinted in your body. So once you know that, like, okay, these things exist inside of me. So it's not easy for many women to just go back and say, just forget about it. We actually can do work to travel into your body and say, okay, where is, maybe I get a tightness in my throat. And there are tools and practices that we can do to bring awareness to that area and kind of relieve that moving forward, to actually heal the trauma on a body level.
So, the modalities you're talking about is that you just, depending on the client you're working with, you decide what to use. Is it all like therapy type or like EFT tapping?
A lot of tapping.
Okay.
Tapping. There's a lot of visualization, diving into the body. These are coaching tools that anyone who does any kind of embodiment coaching uses these tools to help move through traumas. Yeah.
Okay. So then after that, you say, after we get through that, I love this one. I believe in the power of pussy and pleasure. It's from this divine place of sensuality, turn on, that we ignite our passions and our creativity and locate our deepest desires.
Yes.
So are you saying that creativity is connected to pleasure?
Yes. Hell yes.
Tell me more about that.
100%.
Let's go there.
Yeah, let's go there. So, basically, as a gender, we've kind of, our sexuality has been shut down, right? But have you ever noticed that after you dance to your favorite song, like things shift inside of you? You get new ideas, you get a new idea for a project, or you want to write something. So your creativity is like, yogically speaking, like this, your yoni is a center of creativity. And it is an energy source for you. So when we begin to practice pleasure, and when I work with women, we create their own pleasure spectrum. So that could be, on one end, hanging out, drinking a hot cup of tea and reading a book of poetry. That could be a pleasure practice, all the way to multi-orgasmic experiences. But all of them do something to your nervous system, settle your nervous system, and bring you into a state of heightened creativity. So it is 100%. And, I tell women that we follow the path of pleasure. So the things that light you up, that's the path.
Mm-hmm.
So, Monica, you love interviewing women. That's your path, right? We continue to follow all of these things. And that is what creates a life that feels good to be in.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm wondering, I know you mentioned like pleasure can be as simple as a cup of hot tea, but I'm curious how many, for a lot of women, it's the other end where we're just not having enough good sex. Like we're just not having enough, like in our age where we've sort of like decided that it's not as important anymore, or menopause, or, your body changes. So you got to go through all the hormones and stuff. So that's difficult too. But I know I'm going to be 50 and my girlfriends and I talk about that all the time. Like our bodies have changed and we're trying to figure out how to rewire it to get back to be like a 20-year-old.
Well, I don't think you're ever going to be a 20-year-old again, but, your sex life evolves, changes, but there is always room for sex, sexuality, pleasure. And I think, when I work with women on this, before we talk about sex in their partnership, we talk about sex by themselves and exploring their own bodies first.
So important. I would listen, if my mom's listening, this is where I think she failed me as a young woman. Like, I feel like all mothers, and I tell my girlfriends this all the time, I don't have daughters, but like, make sure you're teaching or, explaining them what that is like, because that should be enough fulfillment and the rest is bonus. Like everything else is just a bonus.
Yeah, you have to know your own body before you enter into partnership. And I have daughters who are 19 and 18 and, I started my kind of reclamation right around the time they were 12 and 13 or 11 and 12. So I have become a huge advocate for self-pleasure since they kind of entered, this puberty, really. So I began talking about masturbation when they were quite young. And it's been great to open the door and have those conversations with them.
I think it's super healthy and I'm glad I think the next generation, like even my friends, they have a much more fluid conversation with their daughters. But our parents, that's not how they grew up. Gosh,
abstain.
Say
don't
nothing.
Do it.
If I don't talk about it, it's not happening.
Exactly. I know. I wish my parents also, there were no conversations around sex. It was just like, even my senior year of high school, I started having sex with my boyfriend. And it was like, my parents, I think, knew it was happening, but they turned a blind eye. And it didn't help me. But back to working with women, just a simple practice could be, laying a towel on your bed, getting some oil. It could be sesame oil or any body oil you have, and just taking 45 minutes, start from your toes, go all the way up to your scalp, and just explore your body and take note. What feels good? What areas do I love? What areas do I not like being touched? And then, moving on from there, exploring your vulva, these are things that feel foreign to us. They shouldn't. It's our body.
I know. And when we get uncomfortable, but it is our body. We should own it and we should know it better than anyone else.
And nourish it. Yeah. Your body wants to be touched. Your body wants to be adored and cared for. And so self-pleasure, self-care is paramount.
So crazy. And also, again, I think talk about gender differences, because with boys, you just expect it. You close the door. They know if the door is closed, God forbid, don't walk in a teenage boy. And but a girl, it's like, don't. It's like the stigma. It's so messed up. How
it is really messed up. I know.
So I'm glad you're saying, nope, not anymore.
No, not in my house.
Not in my. I love it. Okay. So the next thing you say is, I believe it is from a place of intimate connection that a woman locates her voice and her wildness, her sensuality, and her purpose. So are we saying like ultimately that women were just like animals, caged animals, like Glennon Doyle
No,
watching, right
well,
on the
like
little bit.
Untamed.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yes, I think we have been caged in a way, imprisoned in a way. But when I talk about wildness, I'm really talking about like the way we're born
Mm.
and the things we wanted when we were born. Like, the things that going back to the things that brought you joy when you were like 0 to 7 years old, right? And
Yeah.
returning to those things that brought you pleasure, that turned you on. And yeah, your wildness is like who you were meant to be. I've recently started weaving human design into my work. I've been studying it for about
Love
3
it.
years. And this, I believe, is a map to a human's wildness, like showing how we are made and our overall purpose. And I don't mean connected to a job. I
Right.
mean, just connected to your humanity, like what you are here to bring to the collective. It's been really powerful.
Yeah, I love human design. We had a guest early in the season, Leanna, who is a practitioner of this. And I specifically, the way she applies it is, I think, incredibly beneficial because begins to work with young people and give them their imprint. And
Yes.
boy, that would have saved me a lot of time, not only as
Yes.
myself, but now, like, even I remember running my kids' human designs. I'm like, oh, it all makes sense.
Right?
It's
Me too.
why did it's
Exactly.
not that hard.
Originally human design was brought to our consciousness to help parents and kids.
Mm.
So that was the original
Oh,
purpose or the
it makes
original
sense.
download. So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to parent, and I wish I would have been equipped with that information decades ago. It would have made me a different parent from that
I
offset, which
know.
would have saved me a lot of
I know.
arguments.
It's
A
not
lot of
too late. It's
Yeah,
not too
no.
late.
I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now for sure.
Yeah.
So you also say that you believe that every woman's born to be a leader, and and you mean I guess what define leader?
Yeah. A leader is a leader of her own life.
Mm.
Like a
Mhm.
woman who actually is claiming what she wants. It could be the leader of her family. Really, it's the leader of her own desires. I believe when we kind of come back home and sink into this belief that I get to be the leader of my life. Um, I get to choose what I want to do. I get to live my life the way I want to live my life. Like that creates a ripple effect in the world,
Mhm.
right? That creates, massive ripples of love and healing out there when we all begin to kind of claim this leadership. And, specifically, I'm working with women in business now who want to claim their leadership in business, right? They have
Right.
something big to share. Um, but they can't, they're playing small, really. So, that's leadership in another realm, but we all have something to share
Mhm.
with the collective. This is my belief.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think that that's good to define to a lot of women who are listening. Most of our listeners are they're all Gen X women.
Yeah.
But I think to your point, a lot of them who are maybe stay-at-home moms start thinking, well, I'm not a leader, but that's not true.
Oh
To your
gosh,
point.
you're the most important leader on the
Yes,
planet.
they
Like
are.
you're a stay-at-home mom. I mean, kudos to you.
Mhm.
You are leading our next generation. Like that is an incredibly important and powerful position that you are in. And to be showing your children what it looks like to be a woman who is claiming her life as her
Oh,
own, like that is massive healing for the entire planet.
it is. It is. So, Natty, one of the things that we do here at the Kindling Project, as you know, is we are really figuring out how to ignite that spark. Because we,
Mm,
like you, I mean, we're saying the same things, we just have different language for it. In the
yeah.
sense where, you use this very bold and exciting and sexy and bold and empowerment and like take your power back. We say the same things in that, hey, if you align yourself with your true purpose, with what you really
Mm,
are, in everything, the flow and ease just happens. And the the world is better. That ripple effect
Yes.
for us is the same thing. You show up differently. The boardrooms start looking differently. Policy starts looking differently. It's this like a ripple effect. So
yes,
I want to tap into some of your knowledge to try to help our listeners with their particular kindling, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So I feel like to ignite the fire within, I break it down into like all fire associations to building a fire. And the first step for us, obviously, is that Tinder. It's like those, that little kickstart things that get your fire going. And that to me is really understanding before you can even find your passion is it's like you got to throw all that stuff in the fire and figure out what works, what doesn't, and this is why I blog and I write. It's the journey of figuring out the messy. Where do you think, what does Tinder look to for you? Like the very first, you have a coaching client that comes in and is feeling a little bit lost, maybe is in a trance, kind of been going through the motions, or what I call my sleeping beauties. What is the first thing you say to a sleeping beauty to get them thinking differently?
There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. Let that sink in. And it's not your fault. And I think that releases something in a woman that makes space to build a fire. Right?
True.
It's almost like we're clearing the space. We're creating a clearing for us to build the fire. We're hacking things away. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. So for you, it's less about adding, and you're just saying, let's just take away that shame, that guilt, the I'm not enough. And you're saying, no, you're going to hang on to that because you're absolutely enough. And you are who you are because of this, now that we understand this. So then for us, the second step would be like kindling, right? That's when we start really like, figuring out what lights us up. That stuff that just gives you the goosies, and like, you start talking really fast because you're so passionate. And people are like, oh my God, and you're, we're like, we become so contagious with our enthusiasm that you can't, but you just know that's what you're passionate about. How do you get your clients to figure that out?
Yeah, usually we go back to childhood.
Yeah.
And I say, what did you love to do when you were a kid? Right? And what could you do now to tap back into that? So, I have a friend who was a big hiker like myself. And, over the past, she's a client, but over the past 3 years, she's climbed like 24,000 foot mountains in New England. So like she writes and she blogs about her hiking, and so going back and kind of finding that thread. Maybe you used to do dance when you were a kid. Well, there's like a bunch of adult hip hop classes. There's pole dancing in every city, right? Like there are ways to kind of get back. We're the same humans we were when we were, 5, 6, 7 years old. So our desires and the things that turn us on, they're the same.
Okay. So that I guess when you start thinking about it, it is the same thing we wanted as a little girl, right? Things really haven't changed much. It's just we somehow close that chapter, and we're just reopening that. So it takes a little minute to get back there.
Yeah, it was closed for us.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. And I also say, so what do you say to the women? And I'm sure you've heard this because I hear it all the time. Yeah. Oh, I just don't have a passion, or I don't really have a thing. I don't have a purpose, which I call bullshit on. But how do you answer that?
I would say, let's do some digging. It may not feel like you have because it's kind of been beaten out of you, so to speak. But like you absolutely do. And let's start small. True. Start by journaling, start by moving your body.
And I always say too, Natty, you probably agree with this. Sometimes there's even not having the answers, but we also know what we don't like. So sometimes kind of starting with that list is much easier for people, women. Like, well, you definitely don't want to do X, Y, or Z. So maybe start that list. And also I say, and if you're really, really struggling, call your 5 besties. So they will tell you, ask them
Exactly.
that one word. I did this exercise a few years ago. I just sent out a text to my 3 sisters and my 2 besties. And I said, give me one word that describes Monica. And, there it is. There's that common
Exactly.
thread. I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, it's
We
theirs.
did that. We did that in my last program. I had the beginning of the program had people reach out to their friends and say, like, who am I?
Yeah. And they'll tell you because
Mhm.
we can always see, and that's what I love doing for other women too, is like, okay, you cannot hold the mirror for yourself. I'm going to hold it for you. And let me just show
Exactly.
you.
I
'Cause
love
you
that.
can't see it. I see you. So
Yeah.
that's a great thing. Okay. So the third step, so we Tinder, like, and then we have the Kindling. And then to me, it's like the TP, like really building that fire. And that's like where the support comes in. And that's where I think
Mhm.
community and
Yeah.
sisterhood
Sisterhood.
right? So
Yes.
we kind of create that
Yes.
through our Ignite group or through just talking conversations like this, meeting great women like you, and just connecting that foundation. How do you translate that into your world?
Yeah. I always ask women who they spend time with.
Mm.
And, I noticed this in my own life. Once I kind of started on this journey, um, I was kind of looking for women who were on this path
Yeah.
of like creating lives. And I kind of, my friend group shifted dramatically during this time from people who I love, but were just stuck and didn't want to come with me.
Natty, I think we could have an entire podcast about this alone. We
Yeah.
do outgrow our people.
Yes, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And it is so normal. And I think, we're taught that we're supposed to have friends, lifelong friends for, 50 years, but not everyone's on the same path. And you have to surround yourself with people who want to do the work alongside you, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's nothing more fun than like sharing self-development books with your friends and sharing podcasts and going on retreats together.
Yeah.
And right? I mean, so yeah, the TP would be building that community of sisterhood, finding the people who want the same things that you want.
Because this goes right into our next phase, which is really fuel. You need that fuel, and you need those women or those people, your tribe, to be like, yes. And to your point, like, let's do this, try this, connect this. And that fuel of just like more and more and more is really where you start to just ignite and really get excited about things. So at this stage, when you're working with clients, what does that look like when you actually take a client and you've walked her through the phases and now she's ready for that fuel and she's just ready to like rumble? What does that feel like, and what are you working with?
Let's see. I mean, usually at this point, we're working with like teaching women how to, like, they've claimed their own desires, right? And they have this fuel, but now, like, how do we talk about them? How do we share them with the people around us? And this can be a real sticky point for people, especially like if you're in partnership with someone, like showing up as this new version of yourself, like with the people who knew you before. Right?
Yeah.
And it's incredibly powerful. So this is where a lot of relationship stuff comes in. So yeah, it's an interesting process, but it's like, this is where we begin taking like what I call these turtle steps towards creating the lives they want to create. So actually action. So,
Thank you.
right.
Yeah.
This is action. So this is like, I've done all the work. I know what I want. I'm beginning to get turned on. I'm surrounding myself with people. Now it's time to make change in my life. So like, what's the strategy? Am I leaving my job? Am I starting a new career? Am I leaving my marriage?
Yeah.
Right? Like this happens like a lot.
True. I mean,
right?
I'm with you. It's action 100%. I always tell people, you want to be a writer? You got to write.
Right. Exactly.
I don't know how to tell you. Want to be an artist? You've got to paint.
Yes.
Like, you got whatever it is that you want to do, you've got to start taking actions. And to your point, you probably have a more eloquent through your coaching on how to phase it in and out. I mean, I'm not a coach, but I say, like, wherever you are in life, if you don't have the finances, then start reading the books, start
Yes.
YouTube in the videos, like learning
Yes.
about what is your interest.
You
But
can start a side hustle, right? It's
yes,
like
yes.
start your side hustle, get your money from your 9 to 5 and
Hmm.
start building. Start showing up as the
Yeah,
woman that you want to be.
I love it. I love it. So then, okay, you got that. And now this is to me the fun part, the fanning, because we got the fuel and the
Mm,
fanning. The fanning just happens to you. What do you think, Natty? Doesn't this, maybe you could share your story of how once it happens, things just start happening. You start opening
yes.
doors and you're like, I was just talking, like the synchronicities of life
Yes.
just start, people just start landing in your lap, opportunities.
Yes, this is
And
the flow.
yes,
This
yes.
is the flow, right? When you're just like, okay, the more I say yes
Mm,
to the things that excite me,
yeah.
the more I kind of let my fear take a back seat and start writing the blog post,
Mhm.
all of a sudden people start landing in your life, opportunities start landing in your life. And this is where massive, massive growth happens. This is where the leaps happen.
Yeah.
Um, but it involves like really kind of again, like letting that fear sit, next to you in the car, not drive, not even control the radio station, right? And actually doing the things.
Yeah. And now, okay, so let's tell our listeners, boy, they're thinking, Natty, I love what she's saying. How do I
Mm,
work with you? Because it's beyond just a one-on-one coaching. So give us a scope of all the services you offer.
yeah, sure. So I do one-on-one coaching with women. And I have a signature program called Rebels Rising. And this is for women who want to start businesses or are new to business, but they know they are playing small and they want to learn how to show up, and use their voice and become more visible and, create a business that totally reflects them and their wildness and their missions, and makes money.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, right, like a passion project is just a passion project. But um, so Rebels Rising is an 8-week course, and I work with groups of 12 women at a time, and it's totally delicious.
Oh, I love that. 12. So that's a nice cohort. That's a good number.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Feels
think
like a little for like
it's
sorority. Like,
cozy. It's
yeah,
cozy. It's cozy. I like
yeah,
cozy groups. People can show up. It's not scary. Everyone gets one-on-one support. And that's where sisterhood happens.
that is great. Okay, but tell everyone about your podcast too.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Feminine Rebellion.
Okay.
Yeah, the Feminine Rebellion podcast is all about elevating the voices of the women who are out in the world and doing the work to, elevate our consciousness. So, yeah, I interview all sorts of different women who are kind of disruptors, who are doing different things in business and lives. Um, and they're spicy, juicy women, and it's super fun podcast.
It's
So,
yeah, I've had a listen and it is. So I really encourage everyone. If you listen to the Kindling Project, you'll definitely appreciate Natty's as well. So we'll put all this stuff in the show notes so you know how to follow her, all her handles. So tell me a little bit about how, as you think about your business scaling, moving forward.
mm,
I imagine you are a person of growth mindset. So what are you
yeah.
doing these days to learn and grow?
Oh gosh. I'm an avid reader. So I read multiple books at a time. What am I doing right now to learn and grow? I just finished for the fifth time, The Art of Gathering by
Okay, tell me
Priya.
about that.
Yeah, The Art of Gathering is a book by Priya Parker.
Okay.
And definitely put the link in the show notes. It's an awesome book for anyone who is building a business or doing any kind of gathering, even having a wedding. It's about calling in the right people into the sphere, like creating a gathering where everyone feels seen. They're there for a reason.
Oh.
There is a goal, a shared goal or purpose behind it. And I'm really actually using this in my business as I creating cohorts
Mm-hmm.
of people, like using it kind of as a framework almost, as like, who are the people who are going to work best together? Um, what is the purpose of this container? I love that book. I listen all the time to the reruns of the On Being podcast.
Okay.
Do you know that
Mm-mm.
podcast? So it's kind of a spiritual podcast, but and it actually just ended last summer, but there are hundreds of episodes that I've gone back to. So the On Being, the On Being Project is what it's called.
Okay. Sounds great. I like the title.
Yeah,
It kind of captures it.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I'm trying to think. And then just like being with my women, you know, like being with the women of the feminine rebellion. Like I learn from my clients. Right?
Of course.
Like it goes, we co-create and collaborate on so many things that they're my fanning.
I love that. And now what do you see what are you enjoying the most out of your business? Is it the one-on-one? Is it the cohorts? You mentioned writing earlier, speaking engagements, what's podcasting? You're doing a lot of things. What are you loving the most?
I'm a manifesting generator. I have many goals and all the time. I guess I haven't really talked about this, but in the back of my mind, or since I wrote that article that has had so many responses and hits, I've been thinking of writing a book.
I think you have a lot to say, and sign me up to your book launch party. I'll be there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet, but I've got a lot to say. So
I think you have a lot of content.
Yeah, that's my next thing.
It's okay. I love that. Okay. So, and I also like to ask some fierce females about their wins. Like, tell me about some of the wins you've had recently. Either it can be through parenting, relationship, work, personal self-care. Because I don't think we do that enough. We don't give women enough permission. They always, again, it's not polite, it's narcissistic, or it's gloating. No, I want to hear about your wins, girl. Go.
Oh, I love a good brag.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I just yesterday closed out a round of Rebels Rising. And I have to say, like, I am celebrating myself for holding that container. I'm celebrating all the women that are in there. So I brag. It was fucking awesome.
Awesome.
So in my world, we start everything with I brag.
Okay.
So I would brag that I got my daughter off to Seoul, Korea this week, and she has like massive anxiety, and has, dealt with this her whole life. So that was a really, really amazing moment for us, for me to like put her on that plane.
I feel that in so many levels. Whew.
Yeah. So that was a huge mama win for me. So I'm like, that was Sunday. So I am like really basking in that win. And I would say, every day, my relationship with my husband, like, even though we always go through hard stuff, right? I mean, we're in relationship, that things are really good. I'm really, really, really proud of myself for not walking away when I wanted to and doing the work.
Yeah, I'm proud of you too. So what feeling are you chasing these days? Because it sounds like you got a lot of those other feels. Check, check, check.
I know. So, right now, I am chasing the mountains of New Hampshire.
Okay.
So in a few weeks, I will be there for 2 months. And so I am looking forward to I have got a handful of private clients this summer. And I'm really like just chasing that chill lakeside, like might not even shave my legs summer vibe.
I love it.
Like the kind of less professional, just totally chill mountain girl vibes.
Oh, sounds amazing. So I'm excited that it's happening for you.
Thank you.
All right, girl. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Like I said, we're going to put all your information on the show notes, and just one final shout out, girl, for anyone you want this week. Like anyone who's kindled your fire in ways that you just haven't had an opportunity to say to the universe and out loud how grateful you are. Anyone you want?
Yeah, sure. The first person that comes to mind is like one of my besties, Jessica, and she lives around the corner from me, and she always shows up for me in a way that's like so amazingly, deliciously pure and lovely that, whether she hears this or not, Jessica Basil, I love you.
Oh, that's so sweet. We all need a Jessica in our lives.
We do.
Yeah. So for me this week, I'm going to shout out to my sister-in-law, Blue Eyes, who I adore, and my nieces, Gabriella and Tenley, because I am a mom boy, as everyone knows, but I got to go to Taylor Swift on Friday night with the girls, and it was like the best time. And seeing it through their eyes, I don't know. There's something about girls. They're 17 and 20 that was so sweet and so exciting. And I mean, we walked in there, the hotel room, the outfits, the different rods of, curling iron, depending on what mood they were in, the snacks, the this. I'm like, oh my God, I've just walked into a vortex and I love it. It's so awesome.
Good. It's so
and
good.
Taylor Swift was amazing. So
yeah.
Shout out to my girls.
Sounds amazing.
Had a great time. Yep.
Lovely, lovely.
Well, thank you so much, Natty, for joining us. Thanks for sharing with our audience so freely. And really, you got us thinking. Like, we need to be doing a few more things for ourselves. So I really appreciate you.
I appreciate being here. Thank you so much for welcoming me. This has been my utmost pleasure today. Thank you.
Okay, well, until next time, guys, remember, it only takes one spark to ignite the fire within. Talk to you later. Bye.